on building academic vocabulary in the classroom. Christine, the floor is yours.
Okay, I don't know whether we should leave the door open so that people can come in or close it, or what do you think? Otherwise, people might feel like they. Hello, welcome. I suppose I should start with my deep voice after that presentation. So good morning. I will also try and speak slowly. I have a lot to get through, which means I'll probably try and speak very quickly. Because this workshop is going to have a practical component, you're going to be doing some activities, you're going to be doing some sorting and other things. I would really like to spend more time on that so that you get to be a student and imagine what it would be like for your students. And then we can talk about that more. I will start with the theory, just to put us all on the same page. Yep, got it. And so let's start. So it's going to be a little bit backwards, forwards. I might stop at one point and we'll do some practical activities. Then if we have more time, I can go back to the theory, because the presentation will be shared with you from what I understand. So you can always look at that later. Now, this format comes from SIOP, which is a program, and the symbols of SIOP represent sheltered instructional observational protocol. And so what their recommendation is that every subject should have content objectives and they should have language objectives, regardless of whether it is a biology lesson, a sports lesson, a math lesson. So we can quickly go through the content objectives. You're going to be listening to some theory. We're going to participate in different activities. You're going to identify the 4 main language components, which are there. I'm going to read it all for you. And then as learners, I want you to think about how you would rank them. What would be the most challenging for language learners? So would it be reading, writing, listening, or speaking? You might already be able to answer that. But by doing these activities, you're welcome to join if you're coming to this session. But then the specific language of listening, we're going to be using them all in this workshop. But in some lessons, it might just be reading and speaking, or reading and writing, or it could be all 4, depending on what the activity is. I'm also hoping that you will be able to explain the difference between receptive and productive language. You might already have some ideas of what that is. I'm hoping that during this presentation, it will be clearer for you. And then, as doing these activities, I'm really hoping that you will be able to think about how you can use these in your classroom. So whether you are a subject teacher or a language teacher, you could be teaching Latvian, you could be teaching a foreign language. These are all going to be in English, but you can adapt them to language that you're teaching in.
Sorry, is it possible to send these materials to our email?
Yes, I understand that they will be shared. I understand they will be shared. Thank you. Is it not working at all?
It's working here. It's the weirdest thing. It is working here. Can you please?
Yes. All right.
Wait.
You're going to try and click?
Yeah.
Well, all right. As I'm just trying to figure it out, I'll go on. One of the things that as an elementary primary school teacher struggle with is when parents say, "Oh, it's really good," and I'm like, okay. Here we go. Very good. And so often they think, oh, well, they understand it. They can read books in English. They can communicate using BIC, and some of you might be familiar with that. The basic interpersonal communication skills, or an easier way of explaining that is playground language. So they can communicate sufficiently with their friends out in the playground, get their message across. And then we need to take them to that academic level, the CALC. And parents think, oh, they can answer simple questions. Yeah, welcome, find your spot. Now, the problem is they can often comprehend portions of it. So they will read and they're like, oh, yeah, this is kind of, I got the vague, but they cannot retell it or explain it sufficiently or using that academic language. And we'll dig into this more. They can decode words, but they won't know what they mean. So technically, I could read something in Swedish. Swedish has the same Latin alphabet. And if I know that KJ makes the sound, I can read Skelvod or whatever word. I don't know what I'm reading. I can decode it. I could probably read it, but I will not know what I'm reading. So students do the same thing. They can often read, and be like, what? They really not readers. And you ask them, what did you read? And it's like, and that's where they struggle. And because they struggle with reading, then they also struggle with speaking and then writing. Thank you. So breaking this down a little bit more, we can comprehend portions of text, and the next part is the retelling and the explaining. So decoding. All right, where technology loves us today. All right, let's move on because we'll try and go. So when it comes to decoding, next word. So if my students know the digraph sh and they know her, they can be chop. Simple word. Do they know what it means? It could mean a verb, to chop. I can chop vegetables, I can chop wood, but it can also mean lamb chop, pork chop. So in different contexts, it can mean different things. So it's easy for us to teach the letter sounds like, oh, you can offer, chop, yes, chop. Next one, please. Even easier, CBC. Bun. What is the bun? Like a bread roll. Could be a man bun. So now we have a man bun. So, and then we can make links. So why is this a bun? Named after a bun. So students need this language. May not be as part of their vocabulary. Comprehend and retell. I am Australian. I can read this. This is about our preferential voting system. And I'm sure you could read this. And I would say 99%, maybe even 100% of you could explain every single word in this text. But if I asked you to retell this, I wonder how you would do. Because even as an Australian who understands the preferential voting, when I was looking for this, I read it and I'm like, oh boy, I don't know that explains it very well, or if it does, whether someone who didn't understand it would know it. So if we ask our students, do you understand it? They'll be like, yeah, I know every word on this page. Can you explain it? Can you use that vocabulary when you're explaining? So here we come to the receptive and productive language. Now, I'll kind of focus on this graph here. And anyone who has learnt, depending on whether you're British or American, a foreign language, you will probably realize that your receptive skills are much higher. In other words, when you listen to someone speaking in a foreign language, pick out what, I think I know what they're saying. It kind of makes sense. And you could read, because you're reading, because you could do that at your own pace. But if someone asks you to order something at a cafe and put a sentence up, that's a lot harder. And if you don't have that verbal language, if you cannot speak and put a sentence together, writing is the next challenge. So you can think of going to a foreign country and you can listen to the waiter and you can pick out some of the words they're saying. But if you had to order that meal, it's another thing. You're just looking at the visual. I'm going to go through this quickly because, again, the theory, I don't want to harp on that. I want us to get to doing some fun activities. But something that will come up as well is that the understanding of what we learn, it takes regular repetition before it becomes part of our lesson. And in one of the other slides, you'll see it takes using a word 15 to 20 times before you even really remember that word. If the teacher uses it the next day, yes, that's great. Next week, if you haven't heard it for a week, it's, oh yeah, I heard that word. What does it mean? And I was even thinking of a word that my husband used to use. He liked a particular Australian politician, and he would use the word recalcitrant. I'm like, oh, what does that word mean? And he told me. And then months later, I heard the word again. I'm like, oh, I heard that word. Oh, what was it again? I don't remember. Can you tell me again what that word means? And he told me again. When I was doing this presentation, I remembered that word. Do you think I remember what the word means? I looked it up. I know now. It means someone who is in opposition to authority. So I now think that next time I hear it, I really will know that word. So if I'm hearing it, I'm like, oh yes. And I'm sure you do that too. When you read a book, you might come across a word that you are not familiar with. You might look it up. Like, oh yeah, that makes sense. But if you don't see that word again, it's gone. It's gone, gone, gone. Okay, let's move on. Not going?
No.
It's okay. All right. Let's see if you can sort that out, and I'm trying to think of memorizing what slides I even have. But look, we can start with the activity. I have 4 different activities. I was imagining we would do it like 2 different activities and swap over again, but we're not that big a group. And see, the problem with this is that the people who are watching won't be able to participate as well. Maybe we can flip that. All right, vocabulary. You know what? Maybe let's just. Okay, go to the next slide and the next one. All right. Yeah, keep going, and we'll come back to these afterwards. All right. 2 more clicks. 1 and 1 more. -1. Okay, so we're going to. Technology is not our friend today. 2 activities. Not sure if you are familiar with Taboo. Matching activity will be a lot simpler. So the matching activity I have, and I did this with my 5th graders. I teach English as a second language. I'm the ELL coordinator at Expertise. And they were doing units about government. So we were looking at justice and all the different things, like different forms of government. And we were reading an article about Rosa Parks. Now, I'm not sure that many of you will be familiar with Rosa Parks, but she was a little American girl who didn't want to give up her seat on the bus. And this was going back in was it 1960? Yeah, I can't remember. This was the beginning of the year. I did this activity with my students. And so they had no concept of what segregation meant. How white people and black people, they were segregated in society. So we were reading about Rosa Parks. There were a lot of words in the text that they did not understand. So first of all, I gave them the material. I said, highlight any words you don't know. So they did. I said, did you understand what the story was about? Yes. Can you tell me? In very general terms, yes, they could retell what the story was about. Did you join? Did you join? But afterwards, I looked at the words they highlighted, and then I created word definition, and I tried to find pictures that would match. And their job was to match the words, the picture, and the definition. They could do it in pairs. As we saw, the students said it's nice if you're in a paired up group. They could do it individually. In fact, I tried to get them to do it individually, and they did, and then they compared. So that's going to be one activity for you to do that. And then think about what language skills you are using. Reading, writing, listening, speaking. The taboo game is interesting, and there are different ways we could do that. So for some students, you can use them with pictures. So they have an idea of what the picture is. Under each, there are words, and they are the taboo words. So they have to explain what that picture is without using those 4 words. So for example, here I have some clothes, and the words that I'm not allowed to use is t-shirt, skirt, jeans, and dress. How am I going to explain this to my group or my partner for them to get what the word is that I'm trying to explain? So I would have to say, these are items that you can wear. Not using any of those. These things could be made of different materials. Men and women can wear these things. And hopefully, eventually, they'll be able to pick up what that is. And get clothes. Yeah, good. And then you go on to things. You do it where you have the word at the top, no picture, and then words down the bottom that you are not allowed to use. Today, extra challenge you, because I'm hoping to do this with my 4th graders. They are currently learning about biomes. So different environments, habitats, and imagine you have a card that has the picture, it has the word, and it has 5 words that you're not supposed to use. And you have to try and describe that habitat, that biome, to your group for them to get. Now, you can up and down the level. So here, this one has pictures. You can decide, okay, if it's got real language learners, you might decide that rather than them not being able to use 5 words, they're not allowed to use 3 words. Maybe if you've got absolute beginners, you can say, you can use these words to describe it. So you can modify how you want to do this activity. But this also comes with the idea that you have some background knowledge about biomes. I'm going to leave it open to you because if you don't feel comfortable knowing about biomes, I can read them quickly. So if you're not familiar with biome, it's rainforest, savanna, taiga, tundra, desert, grassland, adaptation, diversity, precipitation, temperate forest, biome or climate. All right, so that might seem rather daunting. You don't have to do those ones. You can choose from these ones. Or you can choose from these ones, which include things like phone, English, red, ghost, farmer, tree. So I'm not going to put you on the spot. I don't want to make you feel uncomfortable. If you wanted to, depending on what nationalities we have, you could even try and do it in your mother tongue. You know the people around you. It's more just using the language and knowing how difficult it is for some students, even my fifth graders, with basic language can struggle to construct and think of how can I say this without using these words. And I play these games with them, and it's not the easiest activity for them to do. Maybe I'll explain all of the activities and then we'll see how we go. So click 2 more times. All right. So I also have a closed passage, or as some people call them, gap fill. So you have the words at the top and you have sentences and you have to decide which word fits in which sentence. So that will be another activity. I've got plenty more. And then the last activity is a communicative crossword. So for this one, you do have to work in pairs. One person has all the down clues, and the other partner has all the across answers. And what you have to do is with your partner, they have to say, all right, 1 down. What are the clues? What clues can you give me for 1 down? And then they have to produce some sort of clues. And then you go, oh, is it this? Is it a chair? No. Give more clues. Is it this? Mm-mm. Then it's all right, your turn. And then you can take turns. And there's different ways you can set this up as well. So you can give each student ahead of time the words they're going to have, and they have to come up with the clues. I've done this with my 4th graders before, where I said start with the most kind of obscure clues and then make them more obvious. So if they don't get the first 2, then you can find something that will, yes, I'll know that for sure. These are all plant related. I have done this with 2nd grade. They were looking at the function of different parts of the plant. So they had words like stem and root. So this is the part of the plant that absorbs the water from the ground. Yes, it's good, right? But you won't have that one. You'll have other ones. But just so you know, there's different ways that you can apply this. So this can be very subject specific. It could be related to biology. It could be related to math. Could be some different math terms. And then you really understand how well students know conceptually what those things are. And then it's a good way of assessing as well. So do my students know what the function of roots are, the function of a stem, the function of leaves? All right. So these are our different activities. So given the slideshow wasn't being very cooperative, we'll try doing this. Then it will be nice to stop and talk about what language components you use, and then think about how you might use them in your classroom, what you found challenging, what made you feel maybe uncomfortable. It was like, I don't have the vocabulary. I don't know this word. How do I explain it? I'll move around the room as well. I'm not sure for our online viewers, I can show you some of the different things so that you can at least get an idea. I'm not sure even how I'll do that. I'll see if I can figure that out. Otherwise, you can welcome to join another group for a little while. So let me see. We have 2, 4, 6, 8, and is any of you participating or just waiting for a second? You're just okay. So we've just got an odd number, but maybe we can do something and well, maybe we'll stick with a group of 3. Would you be happy with working in a group of 3? Maybe we can even all start with the communicative crossword. So I might start with that. And then there's no, so I'm just going to randomly assign you. You're going to do. Maybe one person will be the observer in each group. I don't know who gets this group. You can start as soon as you get them. All plant related. If you don't know what the word is, we can try and help you. Who's going to explain here? I'm just going to leave those. You can figure it out. So think, give yourself some think time. How would you explain some of these words? I don't even know who can see me and how well. Do you see the camera version?
No, I don't.
Oh.
Yeah. No, I don't.
Here's an example of what it looks like. I don't know if they can see. And the other one, if anyone has still watching. So, Alice, if you had to give me a clue, I'm going to ask you. Okay, although I know the word, I'll do it. Well, maybe you ask me.
Yeah, sure. These what word will be 8 down?
Down. Oh, this is or it doesn't stand on it. Only about the grape. Grape
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
a vine. Very good. So V-I-N-E. All right. One more. I don't know if anyone can hear, but
Yep. I'll say I'll go for a tough one. 11 down.
down. Oh, this is a particular type of flower.
Okay.
And a lot of lavender in particular, but not just lavender, love drinking this flower. It is a white yellow flower. It's very calming. They often like drinking it before going to bed.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I like it also before going to bed. Chamomile. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Imagine explaining that.
Right.
About what you could do to explain what that is. Right, let's do one more.
I'll say 14 down.
14 down. This is a part of the plant. It is the part that makes food for the plant. They come in different sizes. They change color in autumn. And in this tree, and plant, it makes food. Think about the different parts of the plant.
Okay. I am, but still, so wow. No. I clearly failed my
Your biology.
my biology classes.
They come in different shapes.
Not it's I mean
On a pine tree, they're called needles. So I can see them in the green.
yeah. I mean they're not leaves per se. But it's in plural. Okay.
Only
Okay. Okay. Go ahead. Um, right.
Sometimes you see what was this? What did you find the most challenging part of this activity? Is anyone brave enough? I find it really hard, especially you're talking about your fourth graders. They probably don't have a lot of synonyms or a lot of structures that they can. So I thought it would be great for that. It really forced you into that. It was beyond just the vocab. So supporting language learners, you could have some examples of questions, maybe some sentence starters to prepare them. Yes, this is very like throw it on you. You will have to know what half these words mean, which is challenging self. But then even those language structures, and I know I was doing it with Andre here just for the camera, for our online viewers, if there are any out there. And then to think, okay, how am I, and I could see that when I was doing Vine, it was difficult. I could see the thinking process going on in his head. And I'm like, all right, how else could I explain it? And I did great throw on these. And so I was like, and then okay, oh great, fine. And because I started with it's something that grows on the trellis or it likes to hang on to things, it doesn't support itself. But then that's great for biology if you were checking their understanding of what and you'll be able to keep those papers together. So the clipboard you can't take, but the papers you can take. All right. So maybe something a little bit less demanding now. And I'll get you all to do it. It seems easier. Everyone just does the same topic. We have a campus. I'll give you the Gatsfield or closed passage. You can pick them. You can pick both of them. I've got more. Let's see how we feel about time. Again, you can work with the people around you, work with the kids, first of all. Absolutely, absolutely. I can do extra copies if you would like. All right. So, for our people at home,
Yeah, they are there. They are
Okay.
there.
So the words we have, maybe to make it easier, I have the word image, injustice, suit, suitable, represent, and represent. Now, I haven't explained this activity. They're just working away at the moment. But for example, the first one is the writer creates a good of the lion hunt. And you would have to choose from those words. Now, there are 6 words, but there are 10 sentences. So maybe at home you can think about, and this will be a question I'll be asking the participants here, why 6 and 10 sentences? Because often in gap fill, you'll have the exact number of words to the number of sentences. So something for you to think about at home. I can hold it there. I don't know if anyone can see. Can you?
Yeah, I can get it
Yeah, you can see where? Oh,
Yeah.
huh?
somewhere there.
Yes, before your hand gets tired.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you haven't finished. It's not a test. I'm not going to be taking the any thoughts about this process. So what I did share with the viewers at home is that you may have noticed there were 6 words, but 10 sentences. So why 6 words, 10 sentences? Does anyone have any thoughts on it? Because usually with an activity like this, there are the exact number of words or the number of spaces that need to be filled. Or extra, yeah. Some of them repeat, yes. Also, it can be, yes. People will do the ones they know, and then it's like, oh, this last one, oh, they must go in there. So there's no real thinking involved then. It's like, oh, I've done all the ones I know. That means I've got 2. Yeah, maybe that one will go there and that one will go there. So it kind of pushes that thinking just that little bit more. I did write here as the instructions, use the words above or their word form to complete sentences. So sometimes what I've done with students, when we were doing grade 5, we're doing an media unit and we were learning about reporters. We looked at different word forms: report, report, reporter, reporting, reported. And what they had to do is work out which words would fit in which context. And I can say, Mary reports to the principal, or the teacher writes report. So again, very different for our language learners. But it does think that, oh, maybe it's not so simple of just a plug and get. How did you feel about doing it? Did this feel like a threatening activity? Which one was easier, this one or the communicative crossword? Oh, some people said crossword. Well, okay, that's interesting because I was imagining maybe this one would be easy. Why this one? Sometimes I think this one, you're not, you can do it individually. You don't have a partner who's going to judge you maybe, or know how much you know. This is something that you can fill out, and then maybe, worst case, the teacher just collects them and goes through. Best case is if the teacher goes through each one and double checks for understanding. Why did you put that word there? Put a different word go there. So image and representation. So the writer creates a good image of the lion hunt, or you could think the lion created a good representation of the lion hunt. So you could pull those writer students even further, like, oh, can you see some similarities? So that's something that you can think about as well. All right, the next activity we have is this matching activity. And while you were working, I handed it out to you. So you will see the words are in bold and the definitions are a little bit longer. Here's the definition. And I do have pictures. The pictures are not ideal for all cases, and with students we talked about it, but have you can either work in partners or individually. See if you can match those pictures and definitions with the words. And think about what processes you are going through as a language learner. Let me see if I can find something for our online viewers. Where is my... I've got the printed out version. I don't think I do actually. For our online here. Through some pictures. Some of them will be a little bit difficult. These were the ones from the Rosa Park. And they can be a little bit ambiguous. But that's kind of a challenge in itself. So you can discuss what you think. And it does mean that you understand the vocabulary. So some of the vocabulary that we have: worn out, judge, to judge or court, fist, hatred, refuse, guilty, ignite, and courage. And there might be more. I haven't separated them out, but there could have had 12 words. Oh no, segregation, another word. And justice, discrimination. So we have a lot of words that can be quite similar, but the shades of meaning differ, and that's where it can become quite complicated. How do I go? It's the before I think, yeah, okay. I didn't forever. But another way of doing it is you like, word, find the thing that is matched, and then you also get an understanding of their conceptual understanding of what that is. Because some words like democracy, hard to find a democracy, you know, but if you challenge them, I say, well, why did you do this? Yeah. Well, things is, we have the touching thing working again because I'm looking
Yeah.
at
Yeah, yeah.
I think to be
Yes.
um back to where we kind of stopped. Oh, that I go backwards rather, and we can go through. Oh, yeah. Okay, so the next slide again.
This one.
And we'll see if we even. Oh, see, it keeps coming to the.
And we have
Is it going to be touching if I touch it or?
no.
No, you can click on.
Okay.
All right, maybe I'll forward this. Again, it doesn't matter if you haven't finished. But would anyone like to share how they felt about doing this particular activity? What was maybe challenging or easy? And why was that so difficult? Is it because some of the words were very similar? Probably so. Which one was the hardest one to find a picture for? Ah, okay. So, of you was guilty. For this group, it was this picture. Hatred. Because if I was between class, I would go through and I would say, okay, what did you choose for this one? Hatred. Why hatred? And then again, those shades of meaning. It's like hatred has such a strong, kind of powerful feeling towards it, and yeah. But then hatred might even feel like this one. So that's where this was very difficult. And I'm not going to say one picture is right as a teacher and one is wrong. I just want my students to be able to explain why they chose that picture. It's not like, oh, no, that's not hatred. This one's hatred. Because a lot of these words, and when I was looking for a picture for court, I was finding pictures of buildings, but to me, a building could be a school, could be a church, could be any building. And if it had court on it, well, that defeated the purpose of them trying to. So I was trying to imagine what a courtroom looks like. But then you also had the judge's gavel, and that could be judged. So I'm judging you. I've decided that. And then another group said, and for the people at home, that this was judged, that they are being judged. And yes, it can be. Like, oh, I don't like what clothes you're wearing, or oh, your hair looks messy. We all feel judged. And that's often what it feels like, someone pointing at you. So being able to get our students to talk about these, and for me in my ELL lesson, my main focus is to get students to use language, to produce language. I can have them read. I can have them write. And that will writing will give me an indication of where their English skills are. But they need to use the language for it to become part of their lexicon. And that is hard. The students down there have a language learner. You know, it's an embarrassment to use any language. But if you are in a safe space, then it's all wonderful. So for me, I understand Latvian. I was brought up in a Latvian household. I can listen to the Latvian news and I can understand everything that is being said. But if I have to say it again and repeat it, I'm not going to be using all of those terms that they have used because they're not. I use English every day, all day. I have very little opportunities to use Latvian. So for me, that's why that my Latvian won't develop as much because I'm simply not using it. So, and if you're learning a foreign language as well, and the more you use it, the more it will stick. Okay. So, any other comments about this activity before we move on?
We use so colorful, we say most of the little students who are ignorant of the words because they used to all these modern technology for colorful pictures and it's very good. Often, and in your lesson, I do realize that it's Saturday.
I'm not standing here. And you're very right. One other thing that I do often is I'll have students illustrate a word. Then I have them write it in a sentence, give a definition, and then the other word form. So it also helps. And I'm a visual learner.
Yeah.
And when I had first graders, we were learning about town and country. And so we were using words like rural and urban. And you would think, oh, why would first graders need to know that? So rural was this. And they came up with this action. So why is this rural? Does anyone want to have a guess why this is rural? And this was urban. This is urban. And when they saw those, I think, it helped them. Am I running out of time?
Yes.
Am I over? All right. Thank you, guys. I you want I'll take the bag.
Well, we are almost over, but not entirely over. So this is the chance that you have to ask Miss Christine question. Yes.
We get to try the food, but I knew we wouldn't have enough time for everything. Well, technology won't sound friendly.
Yes. So do you guys have any questions for Miss Catherine?
Any questions?
Oh, please go ahead with your compliment.
That was so much longer.
What- Well, despite the recalcitrant attitude of technology today, I think that we all can agree that we were able to see firsthand with hands-on activities how we can include we can exercise all elements of any language that we want to teach in the classroom. As Ms. Christine was saying, it's not only for language teaching, it could be you also used in any subject matter. At the end of the day, regardless of the subject that we teach, we end up becoming language teachers in any way, shape, or form. So thank you very much for